right. Good morning. Everything is working. Good morning on YouTube. How are you all over there? Trust you're all doing well. Happy to be with everybody. Just give it a few seconds, wait till everyone hops in, and we'll get on with it. I have a lot to share today. Thank you, Kennedy. Oh, good. Welcome to Nashville, Anarita. Have fun today. It's a bit cold, but go to some museums. If you love music, it's great. All right, just give it a few more seconds. Hi. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Morning, Alyssa. Morning, everyone. Morning, YouTube. Good, Anarita, good. Yeah, check out the museums. Some good museums here. Morning, Dory. Morning, everyone. All right, so I have a lot to share today, a lot of ground to cover, and I'll try and fit it all in the window of time that we have. The 1970s, 80s, and 90s. One illegal narcotic after another flooded the streets. And you could say that we were experiencing an influx of these substances at epidemic proportions, not too dissimilar than today. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the common thought form was that the closer you are to the source, meaning if you were in the heroin trade, the closer you were to the golden triangle, and you were able to source it from the golden triangle, the better your product was and the more you were able to make money in the streets. In the 80s and 90s, everyone pivoted to Colombia and cocaine. Somebody one day figured out how to cook it up and make crack. One way or another, throughout human history, whether it be the illegal narcotics trade or any other form of business, anything else that's transactional, anything else that requires a buyer and a seller, the common thought form is that the closer you are to the source, the closer you are to the point of origin of the thing that you're trying to procure, like, for example, the modern day equivalent would be computer chips. Try getting one of those. So after a while, you begin to realize, well, hang on a minute. Everything that's closest to the source, whether it's an illicit substance or whether it's something that's not, everything that's closest to the source has the greatest value because it is deemed to have the highest level of purity. Now, this closeness to the source, depending on what you're close to, for example, if you were close to the heroin trade, or even remotely around that, was 100% destructive. If you were close to the source as it related to the coke game, 100% destructive. And if you were close to the source as it related to crack, 100% disruptive. Now you could say that being close to the source as it relates to chips and processors and computing power, depending on what language learning model we plug it into and how we set this thing up in the context of artificial intelligence, could also be as equally destructive. So, close to the source. The closeness to the source. In a spiritual capacity, this is why people would get on a plane and fly to India. Because they wanted to be close to the source, close to the foundation of where the energy, the wisdom, the information was coming from. In a religious context, this is why people go on spiritual pilgrimage, because they want to be close to the source. So human beings have yearned to be close to the source since the beginning of time. And no matter what it is, whether it was the drug epidemic in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and whatever manifestation of that is today, whether it's microchips, whether it's technology, software development, whatever it is, religion, spirituality, human beings have assigned a premium to that closeness to the source. Now, why is this relevant? Well, because you couldn't be any closer to the source if you tried, because you are the source. You couldn't be any closer to the source if you tried, because you are the source. And why this is especially pertinent to you is because if human beings place a premium on being close to the source, because close to the source requires has an assumption of purity to it, well then at that point that means that you're close to the source, that is you, and there's 100% purity in that connection because it's coming from you. Now, the interesting thing is that just like people have been able to use that proximity and that closeness to either make a lot of money but fundamentally damage families and societies for generations, or they use it to innovate some technology and uplift people, potentially, it's all the same thing. There has to be a source of things. There has to be a place from which all things arise. And in our time together, the reason why I love our time together is because you're the source. And here is why. In indigenous civilizations and cultures, they had no notion of ownership. There was no sense that things belonged to people. There were no lines on maps. There was no carving out of territories. There was no notion of mine, yours. They didn't even do that with God. This thing called Great Spirit belonged to everybody, and it was equally present in all things. There was no notion of my God and your God, and my God is better than your God, and unless you bend the knee and kiss the ring, you're not going to make it. So we did, and we have lived at points in human history where we have been the source. And because we've been the source, we've been freed of the separation and the duality and the nonsense that comes along, and sometimes the fallout that comes along with making other people the source. In some way recognizing that somebody outside of you is the source. Now here's what's fascinating. In indigenous civilizations and cultures, they say, the shamans say, that we're living inside of God's dream. We're living inside of God's dream. And that we're a part of God's dream. Well, let's just be with this for a second. If we're living inside of God's dream and God is dreaming us into existence, then aren't we a manifestation of the same perfection that made us? Aren't we just a unique expression of the same being that made us? Of course we are. And this is where our absence of a need to fix, heal, change, and improve comes from. Because if I was created by an infinite intelligence, and in fact I'm living inside of God's dream, and I'm a figment of God's imagination, somehow God dreamed me up in its spare time, well then that means that I'm exactly the way that I'm supposed to be. But here's where it gets even more interesting. That means that everyone and everything in your life is a part of your dream. And that actually every person is taking on whatever characteristics or whatever form they have to take on for you. because they're a part of your dream. And by that same regard, if you're a part of God's dream, you're a figment of God's imagination. And naturally that implies then that there's an inherent perfection here. Then doesn't that mean then that there's an innate perfection to everyone that's a part of your dream too? Aren't we all just extensions of the same dream? So this is best demonstrated by drawing two circles on a page. The larger circle, the broader circle, is God's dream. The circle within that circle is your dream. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Because you are a manifestation of the same infinite intelligence that is animating all things, and that presence and that potential dwells within all things equally, there is no difference between the smaller circle and the larger circle. None. No difference at all. The micro and the macro are all the same. And so in the context of the source and in the context of value and the value we place on things, even illicit substances or technological breakthroughs or advancements or wisdom or insight or whatever that is, it doesn't matter what form it takes. Humans have coveted a closeness to the source. Well, then how much closer to God could you possibly be? And then also, how much more perfect could you possibly be? If you've ever had the blessing of doing a family constellation therapy session, these things are illuminating. Because after a while you realize that everyone in your life is just a projection of your own, an interpretation of your own. And here's why. Because you can have an absolute stranger representing your mother, and all of a sudden they're assigned the role of your mum, and lo and behold, that person takes on the characteristics of mum exactly. Why? Because you're the origin of mum. If you were raised in a house with 4 siblings, each one of you will have a different experience of mum for that reason. Because everyone is living in their interpretation, in their dream. Do you understand what I'm saying? And as much as that applies to a person, that applies to everything. All of this is your dream. Now this becomes increasingly interesting when we use some scientific principles like the observer effect to begin to make sense of all of this in some way. If there's nobody there to observe it, does it exist? In the absence of you and your interpretation of mom, is mom still mom? No. Because you're the one that gives mom her unique characteristics, her unique flavor, her unique qualities. You're having your own unique interpretation. So while everyone's running around trying to manifest things, all the while you're missing the point that you've already created all of this, that all of this is already a manifestation in motion, and instead of trying to change it now, all you have to do is just marvel at the fact that it's happening at all, that you're only ever bumping up against your own individual interpretations of reality. For example, when a marriage ends, it's not that the marriage ends, it's that your own individual unique interpretation of the marriage, the dream that you had for the marriage, came to a finality. And when the marriage ends, you're not grieving the loss of the other person, because quite frankly, you couldn't care less if they were in your life or not, for the most part. You're grieving the loss of the dream that you had. Do you understand? When your mother dies, you're not actually grieving the loss of your mother. Sure, if she was affectionate, you'll miss the cuddles, you'll miss the hugs, you'll miss the affection on a physical level. But you're grieving the dream of your mother. So in life, you're only ever bumping up against your own interpretation of reality, and you are only ever experiencing your own interpretation of reality. And after a while you realize that, well, hang on a minute, I don't have to bump up against my own interpretation of reality. I can just accept my own unique interpretation of reality, because if in fact I am a part of God's stream and there is an infinite intelligence that made me, then I'm a slice of perfection. It's like a lemon or a lime, nice cool glass of water on a warm sunny day. And that means then that everything that's a part of my interpretation, everything that's a part of my experience, is also that. So then I don't have to grieve the loss of anything, because everything is a manifestation of my own consciousness. And I don't have to change it. I can't change it. I don't have to meditate for 8 hours a day to try and exert some false sense of control over it. When a job ends, you're not upset about the fact that the job ended. You're upset about the fact that the dream of the job came to a finality. Do you see what I'm saying? So every human being is dreaming. And they're living inside of their own dream. And every dream is happening inside of this collective infinite dream. Vibrating particles and molecules are taking whatever form we need them to take for us to deliver to us whatever experiences it is that we need to have as a part of our journey. And before you get too excited, there's no point to any of it. Just like when you go to a movie and you watch the movie, you're just having the experience of the film. In that same way, you're here just having the experience of this reality. You're having this experience of whatever it is that you're going through. But you're the one, your interpretation, your dream is the only thing that you're ever bumping up against. Why are people the way they are? Well, because you're experiencing your interpretation of how they're supposed to be. So then all I have to do is accept everyone the way that they are? And I can just accept myself as a part of God's stream? Yeah. Yeah, you can accept yourself as a part of God's stream. But then you can also extend that same courtesy to everyone else. To everyone else. And so nothing belongs to me. No. There's no ownership. No, people just made up these lines on a map and they called them countries and continents. Nothing belongs to you. Everything is just an experience. What belongs to you is your interpretation. But just like you are God's interpretation of what a human being is, well, in that same way, isn't everyone just your interpretation of what a mother is, or a father is, or what a sibling is? And aren't you supposed to be experiencing that present interpretation of everything that's going on? Of course you are. Your dream is unfolding inside of God's dream. No. What I could never figure out is why people go to horror movies. Life is frightening enough on a daily basis already without going to a horror movie. And in that same way that some of you can't reconcile what you deem to be mean or evil or cruel, well, in that same way I can't reconcile why somebody would subject themselves to 3 hours of terror. But if it's just an experience that we're having, and it's the experience that that person is choosing to have, well, then isn't it just that? In that same way, somebody probably couldn't go to a romantic comedy for 3 hours because they'd probably just throw up in their mouth at how horrible it is, how cliche it is. People love it. Some people don't love it. But isn't that just an experience too? So then aren't we just experiencing ourselves? Aren't we just experiencing our own interpretations? How much closer to God and how much closer to the source could we ever be than we are right now? So the funny thing is that nothing dies. Our dream of it dies, but nothing really dies, as demonstrated by the soul, by the being, by the presence that we are. It doesn't die. It's infinite, eternal, and immortal. Why? Well, because it's a part of the collective. So after a while, you begin to realize, if I lose the concept of ownership Meaning I can still have things, but I just have to realize that they're all rentals. It's all leased. Nothing belongs to me. I have it for the time that I'm here for. Then I'm free. Okay. So if it's all a dream, then what's the part that's real? Well, the part that's real is the fact that somebody's dreaming the dream. The part that's real is the fact that somebody is dreaming the dream. A being is dreaming the dream. You are dreaming the dream. So the dreamer is real. The dream is not. And that's why the ancients, the mystics and the yogis called this all Maya, the illusion. Because they realized that it was all just a dream. It's all a dream. The world of form and phenomenon, what we consider to be reality, is actually just our interpretation, which is existing within a broader context, which is God's interpretation. So you are, in this moment, God's interpretation of what it means to be a human being. And that interpretation does not have to change. And in that same way, everyone in your life is your interpretation. And the only reason why we have these interpretations is so we can have experiences. They're not good, they're not bad, they're just experiences. Now, is it an experience that you would choose to have? No. But some people have chosen to have some pretty wild experiences. But does somebody who loves romantic comedies have to judge somebody who loves horror movies? No. Some people love horror movies. It's their jam. They even go to the conferences and dress up like their favorite horror stars. Personally, not so much for me. So, after a while you begin to realize, hang on a minute. I understand what he's saying. In this moment, I could not be closer to God if I tried. In this moment, I couldn't be any closer to God if I tried. In this moment, I could not be any closer to God if I tried. And this is why you don't have to be fixed, healed, changed, or improved. Because the being, the infinite intelligence is dreaming you is perfect. And this is why you can't change, you see? Because you're not a product of your dream, you're a product of God's dream. And in that same way, everyone in your life can't change either. Because they're not a product of their dream, they're a product of your dream. And literally, I kid you not, if any of you have ever done this family constellation stuff or trauma therapy stuff or whatever, where you have people act out roles of the people in your life, you're the source of the consciousness. You're the source of the interpretation. So then how do we free ourselves? Well, have you ever actually woken up in the midst of a dream? I have. It's great. All of a sudden I'll become aware of the fact that I'm dreaming. And I could be dreaming about whatever, but then all of a sudden I'll be aware of the fact that I'm dreaming. Well, hang on a minute. I'm dreaming. I can fly. I can be a dolphin and go to another planet. I'm not limited at all. I'm dreaming. So how you wake up from all of this is to realize that you're dreaming with your eyes wide open and that everyone in your life is just a part of your dream. And that everything that happens as a part of your dream is perfect for you. Just like you are a manifestation of God, in that same way everyone is a manifestation of you. So let's just take a moment and accept the fact that we're dreaming. and that everyone in our lives is a part of our dream. And that if we're going to be close to a source, the source that we want to be close to is the source that dwells within us. Just take a breath. Human beings, through one form or fashion, have been craving a closeness to the source. And that closeness to the source has been deemed valuable throughout human history. You couldn't be any closer to the source of everything if you tried, because you are the source of everything. Why is your life the way that it is? Because it's your dream. You're dreaming it, accepting it, and being accountable and responsible for it liberates you from suffering. Your life is the dream that you have with your eyes wide open. Your dreams are the dreams that you have with your eyes closed. But after a while, what's the difference? Aren't you the source of the dream that you have at night when you're sleeping? Of course you are. And in that same way, aren't you the source of the dream that you're having with your eyes wide open? Of course you are. This is how you find freedom. To remember that you are the dream within the dream. That there is an infinite dreamer. And that you are a part of that. And that whatever time you're supposed to be here, you're having a dream called your life. And every single person is your interpretation. And just like God has dreamed up you, and you are perfect, in that same way, there is nothing out of place in your life. You show me another person on this planet who can provide you access to the deepest truth, starting off from the drug trade in the 70s, 80s and 90s, and then landing the plane on the runway of liberation. There isn't one. There is nothing out of place in your dream. The only difference is, when you're dreaming with your eyes closed, you know it's not real. Well, by the way, dreaming with your eyes open isn't real either. It's just an interpretation. Yours. Why is your life the way that it is? Because it's your life, it's your dream. And none of it needs to change, and nor can it. Nor can it. So, send you all my love this morning. Laurel. Let's hit them with some emojis. Stop typing. Om Shanti. Thank you, Christy. Dreaming a little dream. Beautiful. Day 1371. Okie dokie. Close your eyes and breathe and relax. Good morning, sweet friends, and welcome to another Called Calm meditation. Our indigenous brothers and sisters had no sense of ownership. They understood very clearly that everything belonged to Great Spirit, and that they were simply here as the custodians of it while they were alive. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't have things. Of course they had things. They just understood very clearly that everything was a rental. Everything was on lease. And that once their life was finished, everything would return to dust. In that same way, we have to recognize that no part of anything that happens here actually belongs to us. You're here for a limited time only in this one man, one woman, one person show. And everything that happens as a part of this limited run is borrowed, rented, or leased. And once that show comes to an end and the finale, the curtain comes down on the final night of the performance, and the flowers are thrown in the general direction of the stage, all of the props, all of the costumes, everything that you had comes to a finality as it relates to you. You see, the reason why they were able to live with such a sense of purity and clarity was because they understood that they were living inside of a dream. They would say that all of this is God's dream, that everything is God's dream, which is actually now scientifically provable and quantifiable. And that actually we're a part of that dream, so we're a part of that perfection, the perfection of the one who is dreaming, this infinite intelligence that created us. And that in that same way, we're experiencing on a personal level our own dream. And that everything and everyone is being informed by our consciousness. And this is all predetermined and pre-programmed. It is immutable. And the reason why no part of any of it can be changed is because it's all a broader manifestation of God's dream. This is why you've never changed. You can't be different. And you've tried some wild stuff. After a while, you realize that loving and accepting yourself and embracing yourself the way you are is the key to freedom and empowerment. And in that same way, once you begin to extend that same courtesy to you, you can then begin to extend that same courtesy to everybody else. Because maybe everyone that you encounter is just your own interpretation of reality. An interpretation that you need to have as a part of your experience called life. And that maybe, just as much as you dream with your eyes closed when you're sleeping at night, all of this is just a dream too, but just with your eyes wide open. The only difference is, when you're dreaming at night, you know it's not real, as convincing as it may be. When you're awake, well, this isn't real either, as convincing as it may be too. After a while, you begin to realize that if you are indeed a manifestation that was born in the mind of God and the heart of God, then you are perfect the way you are. And then after a while, you begin to realize that everyone else also shares that same perfection the way that they are. There is nothing out of place in your life. It's all a dream. Close your eyes, you beautiful beings. Open your palms and take some long, deep cleansing breaths. Just allowing yourselves to become aware of your every inhalation and exhalation. Resting in the awareness of your breath transforms your life into a living meditation or dream. In my interpretation, in my dream, You are all pure love. You are all God. You are all divine. You are all beautiful individual manifestations of light. And that dream is happening within the broader context of the dream of the Creator, God, light, love, presence, great spirit, whatever you want to call it. By virtue of the fact that you're here, you're all a part of my dream, my interpretation of reality. Continuing to rest in the awareness of your breath. And by virtue of the fact that everyone in your life is in your life, well, they're an interpretation of your dream, of your reality. After a while, you begin to recognize that there's no difference between the dreamer and the one who is dreaming. And in that same way, any sense of separation or duality begins to fall away. Just continuing to welcome your inhalation and exhalation. It's time to wake up in the dream. It's time to realize that all of this is just one giant hologram. A play of light. A movement of energy. And that as the dreamer of your dream, in this moment, I would like you to know that you are God, you are a divine being, you are love. You are infinite, eternal, immortal, beautiful, handsome, perfect. Just allowing that truth to land in your heart. In my dream, you are all golden luminous beings, made of pure love. And in that same way, everyone in your life, regardless of how you perceive them, is a manifestation of the same truth. God dreamed you into existence, and you dreamed your life into being. I wholeheartedly accept the divine's version of my life, and I embrace the fact that everything that constitutes my reality is actually just a part of that broader dream. Today, with every breath, I allow myself to become aware of the fact that I am dreaming with my eyes wide open. And so today, I'm going to dream a beautiful dream. I'm going to dream a dream where everyone is God, everyone is divine, everyone is light, everyone is love, everyone is infinite, eternal, and immortal. I'm going to dream the highest dream that I can. And in the same way that the one who dreamed me up into existence did so from a place of infinite intelligence and perfection and infinite choice, in that same way, I am 100% accountable and responsible for every single second of my life. And I accept the totality of my dream called my life. Today, I recognize that I'm dreaming. And I acknowledge that now I am awake inside of the dream that I called my life. Continuing to breathe and relax. In my interpretation of you, you are healthy, you are vibrant, you are fulfilled, you are one with everything, you're an embodiment of grace. Everything in your life unfolds with grace and ease. Because you are the source. Allowing yourself to be empowered in that truth today. I am the source of my life. And I'm dreaming with my eyes wide open. So today, I'm going to dream a beautiful dream. A dream filled with divine beings, with love, with peace, with harmony, with freedom. Be the dreamer of a beautiful dream and realize that there is no more beautiful dream than you. There is no more beautiful dream than you. Take some breaths and just notice how you feel. My life is my dream with my eyes wide open. And everything that happens in my dream is nothing more than my own interpretation. I am 100% accountable and responsible for every single thing that happens in my day to day. because I'm the source of it. Waking up in the dream is to recognize that there's no difference between the dream and the dreamer. In oneness, your life is exactly the way you are. And this is why, once you realize that your love, your light, your divine, your God, whatever you want to call it, well, then you realize that everybody else is that too. Now you know why I'm here every morning, 5 days a week. And all you have to do is click on that link. Or if you're on YouTube, hit the bell button, subscribe. We're having a little get together in 2 days from now. I have a feeling it's going to be miraculous. What would it be like to be able to be aware of the fact that you're dreaming and be fully wide awake in the midst of it? Also, there's a group alignment session today. I have a feeling it's going to be bananas. I have a feeling everything from now on is going to be bananas. Thanks for being a part of everything that constitutes whatever my interpretation of bananas actually even means. So just to recap, our indigenous brothers and sisters have known for generations that all of this is just a dream, and that we're a part of God's dream, that the being who dreamed us up into existence is infinite. And in that same way, our life is a manifestation of our own personal dream. And every single person in our life is nothing more than a reflection of our own innate perfection. If you want to be free, accept the fact that you're dreaming. And in the moment that you become aware of the fact that you're dreaming, with your eyes wide open, you're wide awake. And then at that point, all of a sudden, you'll stop living your interpretation of reality, and you'll start experiencing the reality of your reality. And that's when it starts to get really fun. Because that's when you begin to experience everyone as pure love, as pure light, as divine beings, as God. You have the same revelation as every great being who had the revelation before you. Oh, dreamer, what a beautiful dream you're dreaming. At some point you're going to wake up in the middle of your dream. And when you do, everything's going to become golden and sparkly. Everything's going to become filled with light. Until then, thanks for being a part of my dream. And just to be clear, in my dream, you're golden, sparkly, infinite, eternal, and everything in your life is going to be just fine. Take care, you beautiful human beings. If you're coming to see me, travel safely. If you're already in Nashville, there's plenty of wonderful things to do. I know it's cold, but take some time to immerse yourselves in our wonderful musical history here, and have a nice meal or two, and just know that before you know it, it's going to be Friday. Dream a little dream with me. Dream a little dream with me. Be well. I love you. Keep it classy.